Everyone, welcome to another episode of Third Coast Gaming Radio. Today, our own Austin Taylor has some impressions of Metroid Dread. Hello, Austin.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Hey, yeah, we're talking about Metroid Dread. This is the Metroid being made by Mercury Steam, and they are the ones who did the what is that? The do Metroid
Samus
Samus
Returns.
Returns
Yeah.
for 3DS, which is like the almost like remake of Metroid 2 from the NES. And it looks like after that game came out, the Metroid producer Yoshio Sakamoto appointed Mercury Steam to develop Dread. And I think this idea for this game has been kicking around for a while, but it never got made where you're kind of being followed by these like androids, or we'll kind of get into it, but this has been the first original side-scrolling Metroid since Metroid Fusion, which was
19 years ago.
2002, and I
Yeah.
played the shit out of Fusion, and then I think they remade Metroid 1 as like Metroid Zero Mission on Game Boy Advance as well. But hey,
Yeah.
their side-scrolling Metroid games are really, really good. And how's this one compare, Austin? I'm curious. I don't know anything about about how this is doing so far. So
It's good. It's a good freaking one of those. Like I personally don't have a whole lot of experience in the like 2D like sort of Metroid field. I've never owned like a system that could play one of those, or and if I did, I wasn't making like conscious like purchasing decisions when I did. Um, so like this is like the first one of these I've gotten to sit with, and this is also probably one of the first titles in the larger Metroidvania sort of canon that I have been able to actually stick with, because this game plays pretty well, and it's also just really cool.
yeah, I
Like,
think all the stuff surrounding it being like announced and coming out, like I think Metroid 4 Prime 4 got announced at some point, and that's been reworked and restudioed or whatever. And I'm really glad that when they were showing this off, that it's kind of we kind of known about it since last year, and it's out. And what's how's the gameplay?
yeah,
I wanna let me know how
yeah,
that's been going for you.
yeah. So it's like you're it's your pretty standard like 2D Metroid, except like it's modern sort of sensibilities and this kind of thing. So it runs really smoothly. Like Samus is really fast in this game, right? Like she's running around these maps like quicker than like any of the other two, like or at least what I've seen from playing like the that fan remake of Metroid 2 that came out a while back, but then was like promptly shut down by Nintendo. Um, so it's like you're running around these environments. It's all very like fluid. It's like very easy to do. So like very fun. The combat is like relatively, it's in that way that like I don't know if I ever really liked Metroid combat from when I've played of these games. Like this is the closest to being like pretty fun I'd say that this game has, because it also borrows the I'd say the innovation or the gimmick that Mercury Steam put into the Samus Returns remake on the 3DS, which is the ability for Samus to parry attacks from enemies as they are about to is about to hit you, which allows you to then counter with a very like strong blast from your arm cannon and like killing them instantly. And it's very easy to get the timing down on that once you've like seen an enemy's movesets, and it's really fluid. I think it works really well and is like does not sort of break the pacing of like your speed and running through these environments in a real way, which is such a balancing act that I'm genuinely surprised they were able to like hit the mark on it as well as they did.
Yeah. So we're okay. So I see we've seen the Emmys and the promotional materials, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing. So these guys are chasing you around. I think it's the remote planet of ZDR is what they're
Yeah,
calling it.
so like the whole thing here is this is actually like a direct continuation of Metroid Fusion, right? So the whole like actual narrative conceit here is like there's a parasite, not the Metroids, right? There's this X parasite which is what the Metroids were created to destroy. And they find footage of an X pretty recently, going about its day, I guess, on this planet ZDR. And so they send the Galactic Federation, right? The space government sends 8 of these machines called Emmys, ENMI, right? Which are like giant, almost near nigh indestructible robots that are meant to collect samples of biological waste for research purposes. And as soon as they land on the planet, they lose communication with these robots. So then they send you, Samus, because of the events of Metroid Fusion. She has been sort of fused with Metroid DNA, so she's the only person who can really fight this X parasite. And like once you get to the planet, the thing that in all these games that happens, right, where there's a starting conflict and you lose all of your abilities. And now your current thing is that you are at the bottom of this facility on planet ZDR, which seems to be a sort of a settlement colony of the Chozo, which is a alien race that's responsible for a whole bunch of stuff within this game's lore. And now you're trying to get back to your ship. Or at least that's where I'm at right now. Is I'm trying to go up through this environment and get back to my ship so I can see about getting off this planet.
And I think if I remember correctly, I think the Chozos raised Samus.
Yeah, so there's like this is like we're getting to like some lore, but the Chozos were a race of like big bird people who were like very technologically advanced and raised Samus in the wake of like her like colony being destroyed, in which she was the
Yeah,
only survivor, and they raised her. They like injected her with her DNA so she could like become like a really powerful warrior. There's a whole like lore write up on Polygon.com. That was written by Maddie Myers, which is very useful. And I think like if you're interested in learning Metroid lore, I think is probably one of the better ways you can do it.
yeah, and
Because
I
it's
think
every
I think the space pirates attacked their
yeah
colony home
yeah
with like the giant Ridley monster,
yeah.
who's one of Samus's like big enemies.
Well, he's the space pirate. Right? Like in this game, space pirate is like a race, which is really bonkers. Which like we don't get too like deep into the weeds of Metroid lore. This is everything you need to know before you play Metroid Dread, by Maddie Myers on Polygon.com. I think it's a pretty good explainer of everything. It introduces you to every character. It talks about Other M as much as anyone wants to talk about Other M, um, and why that's important, and like how that sets up like the AI you interact with in this game, right? Because as you're going through the levels of this temple, you're getting into communication with your ship's AI, which is named Adam after a character from Metroid Other M, who's just the worst dude. Um, who sucks just completely. And these AI is like telling you, giving you hints and stuff like how to deal with enemies, and what you can do, and also like how you can move around your environment and like what your powers will allow you to do as you accumulate your powers again.
Yeah, and I think Metroid Zero Mission or Metroid One mostly takes place on Zebes, the like Chozo homeworld. So if you ever get around to that, there's a lot of really cool like Chozo statues and stuff going on in that game. But yeah, Metroid Dread seems really cool. I'm like looking at gameplay of this, and this game is like beautiful. Like I've never seen a side-scrolling like Metroid game look like this. Like I've definitely seen like you remember like there's the Xbox 360 arcade title Shadowrun, I think was one of the
Uh,
first. Was it Shadowrun?
no, Shadowrun's a tabletop game, so I think you're thinking Shadow
Shadow
Complex.
Shadow Complex was one of the first like console 3D games to kind of bring back like the Metroidvania stuff, but make it on like a console system. And then we've seen it with like I would put like Hollow Knight in there as well as a bunch of other stuff that have been coming out. But this, I'm really glad that Nintendo finally was just like going back and getting Metroid side-scrolling stuff going, and it
Yeah,
looks really good on a Switch. And you're playing this docked or undocked, and like, God, it's just beautiful. It looks really fucking cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, like the thing with this game, or at least the what Sakamoto has sort of said was the problem with trying to get this game out the door is that they wanted this game to have that persistent enemy in the Emmys, right? Like they sort of flirted with this infusion with the clone of Samus that shows up sometimes, right? But they wanted to have this persistent enemy that you couldn't necessarily fight, right? In the Emmys, and like how you interact with them in this game is that there are certain sections of the map areas, right? Because it's not just like one big map. You actually have like zones um, that have like their own separate like local maps that you're trying to fill out and look for everything there, and they're all connected by like elevators and teleporters for like fast travel opportunities. Like it's pretty interesting how they sort of worked all of this together. But so within like these individual like levels and map areas, you have certain zones where enemies are moving around and just doing their thing. And if you're in them, they will sense you and they'll start moving towards you. And what Sakamoto had said is that they had a very hard time getting these to work in that way. Or, whether that be, I don't necessarily think there's like a talent thing as much as it was resources. And, what you get when, Mercury Steam comes along and makes this pretty relatively popular remake of Metroid 2 on a system that, like, was already kind of out the door at the time because, like, the Switch had existed when this came out, when the Samus Returns came out. Um, but now they had like Mercury Steam like working with them, they could actually like get the Emmys working in such a way that like they are this very persistent threat that can only be taken out through very specific means.
Yeah. So, what was I gonna say? I forgot. Hey, how's like the exploration in the areas going on? Like, are there the usual like Metroid secrets where you have like kind of a puzzle to solve and then it like rewards you with
Yeah,
like
well, it's
some
that
kind
it's
of an
that
item?
it's that classic thing of like either there's a puzzle or you just get to a point where like you see heat coming out like emitting from a door, right? It's like you can't go in there until you get the Varia suit, because if you get in there with your current like loadout, you're just going to start losing energy and life and such. Um, like the exploration in that way is like I've always kind of struggled with enjoying that aspect of Metroidvania because I'm that kind of person. It's like if part of this game is clearing the map, I want to clear the map before I move on. But because of how relatively easy it is to get in between zones in this game, like once you start activating teleporters, um, like it's pretty manageable to go between areas and find everything. There is some like pretty hidden stuff. This is also like a Metroid game where like same thing with like I'd say Samus Returns and what I remember of that second game is like a lot of the hidden stuff you're gonna find is like missile upgrades, right? So you can carry more missiles, which is the ammunition used to damage bosses and such. I think like people have talked about how they've gotten lost on these maps in this game, and that hasn't happened to me yet. But like I have definitely gone to points where like the map says that there's something I haven't seen or like I haven't gotten into, and it's a real struggle to know whether or not this is like me missing something or I just don't have the equipment I need. Like I don't have the dash, right, to break through a wall or some such thing until I find out wherever it will be.
Yeah. How's the Is there an objective marker system that kind of showing you where you need to be going next in this? Is it pretty
No,
clear about it?
not really. It's like you get to an area and you explore that area until you find a map, right? And once you find a map of that area, it will show you where the exit of that area is, right? Like there'll be like a purple marker on your on your large scale on your larger map, and that's where like the elevator is to the next zone. And as long as like your objective is to get out by getting up to your ship, like that's where you'll need to go. But aside from that, there aren't like other markers on here. The only other markers that you'll end up seeing are on the global map, which is like all of the little zones together, and there will be like two markers for the teleporters that exist on those levels. which connect to color coded teleporters on other levels, which I've only interacted with this one. Uh, and like that's helpful because like these are all very big areas, uh, all things
Yeah.
considered. So like what that allows you to do is just like not have to constantly be running back to this one area to get out of a zone or a
And I will
level.
say, even like the older, like even like the Game Boy ones, I remember playing Fusion and Zero Mission. Those ones are big too, and there's stuff that comes up in Fusion where like you're trying to get down lower into this area, and then you have to go disable like something on the other side of the map. There's Metroid has always been like you coming through these maps and sometimes going through them again to do stuff in it. But
Yeah,
no, I can't wait to play
also
this. I might go play a bunch of Super Metroid since I'm not gonna pick this up for full price.
sure, and like yeah, like I think I'll say about like the sort of Metroidvania aspect of it is like we're already seeing evidence that like like this game was definitely made for to be have its B sequence broken for speed runners, right? Like they've people have already discovered methods to kill I think like the second boss in a matter of minutes.
Interesting. I
Um,
would love to see some speed. I don't think I've ever watched any Metroid speed runs, so I should go check out some of that for some of the other ones. I I think this is a really big step for Nintendo to like have a like right now Nintendo doesn't really have a lot of games coming out. They have their usual like slate of stuff. Like I think we had the Mario Golf game coming out a couple months ago, and like I know we have Breath of the Wild 2 coming out whenever, and all the smaller things in between. But I'm really glad this. I mean, it's coming out. It's October. Christmas is coming up. There's so many people who have a Switch. It's such a so many people have been picking these up that I think for a lot of people this is gonna be like a no brainer. Like if it's a good game and it reviews well, people usually pick it up, to a certain degree. So I think this will definitely show people's actual like interest in Metroid and kind of hoping to see more of these coming out, as well as just putting the older ones on there. I think that's super. Such an easy get for Nintendo, just being like, "Hey, we're gonna put. You can buy a Zero Mission Fusion Metroid Return of Samus pack. Like that's 1, 2, and 4, and then I think Super Metroid's on their Super Nintendo like subscription, which I guess the next one for that is going to be N64 games and
yeah,
what was it? Some Sega
yeah, like
system.
some Sega stuff. I think like Genesis
Yeah.
and N64. I mean, I think that's the thing, right? Like, will I don't know if it's necessarily doing well because it is doing well. Like, it's doing reportedly like pretty well. Even with like the pearl clutching everyone was doing over the fact that like this is already on an emulator, or like a few emulators, and like this is like Dread's already doing pretty well for Metroid, and like I think here is like even if it does well, I don't know if that's like a clear sort of thing. Like, yeah, Nintendo's gonna put these older games on the Switch, especially if they want to continue to drive interest into their online service, which is just mostly the appeal of that mainly being that you get access to older games.
Yeah, and my hope is that the subscription service doesn't end up being them putting Game Boy and GameCube games on there. I mean, there is a type of person who would pay Nintendo, $10 a month to get the a lot of their backwards catalog. But at some point, I'd rather just own these on my Switch and just play them instead of paying $10 a month to get access to them. It's like a tricky thing when you have a lot of those subscriptions already,
Yeah,
and you're only really trying to get 3 or 4 of them.
yeah. I mean, the thing is like like we like sort of like speak very highly of Game Pass all the time. The thing about Game Pass is you always have the option to just buy the game, which is not the case with Nintendo's online service. Like I could not, like they're gonna put Majora's Mask on that subscription service. I just want to buy Majora's Mask. I would like to buy that game specifically because that's the only one in that entire lineup I'm particularly interested in playing again.
Yeah, and for those of us who have PCs, I know a lot of those emulators are out there, but for the people who don't, like getting those versions, like you would get an N64 and a running cartridge, which that's even more difficult now, or you get the GameCube disc and a GameCube or a Wii with a working GameCube controller. And I know that pack of Majora's Mask, Ocarina, and the two NES games is probably somewhere around $100, like on eBay or more. I picked it up at GameStop somehow when it was really cheap, like 15 years ago. But and then or that, or you can like play it on a 3DS, which not the most optimal way. Like Ocarina and Majora are on 3DS, but those are games that to me benefit from being like on a big TV. And even like the
Yeah,
Majora's Mask 3D version, like the 3DS version, has so many great like additions that make that game much more digestible. But I don't think that's going to come anywhere else besides the 3DS or someone emulating it,
yeah,
which is kind of a bummer. Like I would love to see a version of that that could run on the Switch to mess around with it to where you get rid of the bottom screen.
yeah. I don't think it'd be too hard. Is the thing. Like I don't like the thing with like Majora's Mask on the 3DS is that it's more useful for inventory management. Um, but like the thing is like that game had already been built around the systems that are in the N64, which is where you have to pause it to look at your inventory and such. Um, and the other thing to like consider is like when you put these games back on something, like if you're lucky enough to have an N64 and the equipment you need to like put that to make that system display on an HD TV, because that's what most TVs are nowadays. Like it just looks blown out and pretty awful anyway.
Yeah, I agree. So, hey, I hope a bunch of these
Yeah,
Metroid games come to Switch to purchase. But hey, I'm
yeah,
glad you're liking Metroid Dread. It's so cool that these are back in a way, and I can't wait to pick this up later on down the line. It seems
yeah,
really cool.
yeah. And I mean, things like we have no idea what they're gonna do with these like going forward. I would like to see more Metroid, but like they have like spoken about this being like a conclusion to like this era of Metroid, or like this particular story of Metroid that started with that first game and continued through Fusion in that way. Like outside of Prime, I'm not entirely sure what they're going to keep, how they're going to sort of move forward with Metroid as a property, which is something I hope they do. Like it's a surprise, like it's a really cool series, and like again, like Samus is like just a dope protagonist.
Yeah, and her fucking armor has always looked incredibly cool. Like you people who played Smash Brothers and is like, who's Samus Aran? I've never played a Metroid game, and I, God, Smash Brothers is such a good advertising tool for
Yeah,
people to pick up stuff.
yeah, no, like I had never heard of Metroid before playing like the Smash Brothers on the N64, and like Samus was the coolest looking person there. Like Samus in because of her like inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Is the first time that like I remember my siblings who aren't particularly into video games like looking up lore for video game stuff on the internet, right? And it's like how excited like my sister was when she found out like Samus was a woman, uh, because I don't know how many like female combatants were in that first Super Smash Brothers, and like also
Yeah, it
the
was like
fact that
Samus and Peach.
yeah, and and how like dope she is because she's just like a fully armored bounty hunter with a gun arm, and like arguably the most powerful like charge B move in that era of Smash Brothers. It's dope. Like Samus as a protagonist is like it's just she's just really cool.
Yeah, and I think that Metroid Prime being made for the GameCube is what really got my brother and I to get a GameCube,
Yeah.
because we got the edition that came with. It was like a Metroid Prime box, and it has like you can turn the sleeve of that goes over the box into like a poster of like a Metroid Prime poster, and it was like the like metallic silver GameCube, and I think that was like what we were playing on launch with the GameCube. It was like that, and like it's probably just that. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
good
like
times.
despite like the character assassination of, of Other M, like this is just a character that like I know like people have wanted to see more of for a long time and are just like so genuinely happy at the idea of this game, even like before it came out, and like they were validated in that because this game again fucking rules.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hope they put some more Metroids out. Thanks for joining me, Austin.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
All right, and we'll see y'all next time. We'll probably have some more game impressions coming out of things we've played. Might be a Back for Blood thing. I don't know. That came out on Game Pass as we're recording today, or might have been yesterday, but that'll be cool.
Oh, it's today on 12th.
Yeah.
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 I had,
All right.
I had so many instances where I had someone who like thought it was coming out on the 11th. I had to constantly be like, no, it's the 12th. My guy, calm down.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, we're probably gonna mess with that after we get off the podcast. So catch y'all later, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.